All right, cool. Good morning, everybody. My name is Adrian Herder, and I am the media organizer slash community organizer with the nonprofit Nizhóní, and I will also introduce myself. Kia ani itashi che ado tsetesh kishne itashi nadle shein le tsetel toni it ai setena sha ado akwade kinslane de ke khwiste ado akwade shana ne shakot ego nenshle. So good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Adrian Herder, and I'm the media organizer with Nizhóní, and we are a nonprofit that comes from the Black Mesa region, and our work originates from water protection from the Black Mesa area. And so what I wanted to do is that, as we all know, there was a recent decision by FERC, and we wanted to use this time through Zoom and Facebook Live to talk more about what happened, and then also kind of like the backstory on what led up to this decision, and also some folks that were involved in the organizing and campaign of education regarding this project. And so I brought together some folks within our organization and also allied groups to reflect on this campaign and to also talk about pretty much what were some key roles in all of this, and also everyone's part to help make this happen in regards to education and things like that within this area. In particular regarding the proposed Black Mesa pump storage project. But before we dive right into it, I would like to go around and have everyone on here introduce themselves. I already went first. Again, my name is Adrian, and we will start with Delores.
Delores Wilson-Aguirre. My name is Delores Wilson-Aguirre. And currently, I live in the western part of the Navajo Nation, Tuba City, Arizona. My clans are Bipetotni, Do Chodachitni, Sinajini, Ebashichin, Topa, Dashinaledo, Tazashandashache. Although we have a group here on the western side who fought the Escalate project, and I'm with the Save the Confluence, their spokesperson, and working closely with other organizations. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Delores, for that. So next we can go on to Nicole.
Good day, everyone. I'm Nicole Horseherder. I'm the director of Nizhóní. And I am the I help with the Black Mesa pump storage project, and right now I'm out in the field, so I might be turning my audio off and on, but that's me. Hello, everyone.
All right, thank you, Nicole. We can go to Rachel.
Yate bene. Good morning, everyone. Rachel Ellis Initiate. My name is Rachel Ellis. I work for a conservation organization called American Rivers in their Southwest River Protection Program. And I do a variety of water protection work, and I'm based in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Awesome. Okay, Rachel, we can go to Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. Taylor McKinnon. I'm Southwest Director for Center for Biological Diversity. I work on a lot of endangered species issues in the Southwest, including pump storage, and I'm based in Flagstaff. I'm glad to be here. Good morning.
Thank you, Taylor. We can go to Andrew.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Atencia. I'm also with Nizhóní as the community organizer here. I'm moderating the live stream, so I'll be on the back end. But yes, I'm a community organizer out of TNA. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. We can go to Herb.
Oh, yeah. My name is Herb Yazzie. I my family and I live up on Black Mesa. We're one of the families that live closest to the rim of Black Mesa. Within very near the area that was proposed for development that we objected to. Kapaha nslong itacheni basashain ochan dasache puricheni dasanale what
Yeah, Herb. And then lastly, we can go to Percy.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
ela, yeah, Aradan, I not trying. Yeah, I live in mountain, and I find for Chisit Nance, I sing able sing. To Hashkat, so the area that should say, okay, and it is another. I don't did Tonjana and then able in darkness. You see, shit, Sinazin, and you get top of that, you see the Sinazin, and could I could have different side of a cast. I call Kaha.
yeah, Percy. So that's these are the folks that will be talking during this reflection, and so I wanted to get those introductions done so that way everyone's familiar with who is who amongst this group here. So just giving everyone a heads up, we've got a variety of people on here, meaning they're calling in from kind of different places, those of us that have strong internet or data and those of us who don't. So I just want to kind of keep that in mind that if in the event that you might hear it cut out, that could be because somebody might have lost connection. So we are trying to work around that. So sorry if there was anybody that missed any part of it. We'll try and make sure that happens. And yeah, I think that concludes our introductions there. Yes, Taylor did introduce himself. And so, yeah, what I wanted to do next is I wanted to go into this, how this live stream is going to be broken up, this discussion that we're having here. And so I'm going to share a little screen PDF right here. So this is the layout that we're planning on using for this live stream reflection here. And what we're going to be doing is that I want to break this discussion into 5 parts in a way to help tell the backstory from our perspective as Nizhóní and as well as American Rivers and Center for Biological Diversity and a couple of Black Mesa residents as well. So kind of like from where we've been involved with all of this. There's going to be 5 parts to this discussion and reflection. So part 1 is going to be the intervening/e-filing. So what happened, how did we get involved in all of this? So what exactly led up to us being involved in this issue here pertaining to Black Mesa and Black Mesa water, Navajo water. And then that's going to be reflected on by Taylor and Nicole. We're going to give them that time to talk about the intervening/e-filings. And then part 2, we're going to transition to the developer meeting. So as we've got wind of these projects, there are times when we met with the developer of this project, and we're going to talk about the first 2 meetings that happened. And the individuals with this reflection is going to be Percy, Herb, and also Taylor. And then whoever else wants to chime in as well too, but I'm going to give it to those 3 to talk about that meeting. And then also part 3 is going to be the campaign. So after that developers meeting, eventually what led to this hashtag #NoBMPSP campaign. And that'll be a discussion on myself and Delores and Percy and Herb as well too. So talking about that campaign. And then part 4 is the we're going to have here's some insight from Rachel with American Rivers to talk about FERC and also pump storage projects in general. And then lastly, in part 5, we're going to talk about what's next. So what do we see now that this decision was made? What do we need to keep an eye out, an ear out for, and things like that, eye out for what's going to happen next? And that'll be discussion with Nicole, Percy, and Rachel as well too. So with that, what I wanted to do is let's go ahead and jump right into it. So Taylor and Nicole, whoever wants to go first, go ahead and walk us through what happened with that intervening / e-filing. So how did this all start?
Yeah, so I will let everybody know how we got involved in this. And actually I credit I credit Taylor and his group with finding out about this filing first. And it was actually we were getting ready to go on holiday in 2022, and Taylor bumped over this information to us that there was this group called Nature People First who actually filed a big project with FERC, and said, you know, do you guys know about this, and how, and do you want to respond, and how should we respond? So, you know, I got the documents, I took a look at it, and then I asked, you know, like, what do you suggest, Taylor? And I know we don't have an attorney on site, but I know that Center for Biological Diversity does have an attorney. So Taylor, you know, the attorney there was willing to help us out. So we went ahead and we decided that as a small coalition that we would go ahead and file together. And so that's how it happened. We filed over the Christmas holidays and got our paperwork in before the deadline, our comments in before the deadline. And basically, just to recap, the project, the Black Mesa Pump Storage Project by people, Nature and People First, is actually a big pump storage project that was being proposed, where there was going to be 3 large reservoirs on the north end of Black Mesa, and then 3 large reservoirs at the base of Black Mesa. And they were named, it was gonna require a lot of water use, but it wasn't specified exactly where that water was gonna come from. So we knew that this meant that the potential for Black Mesa water to continue to be used at this large industrial scale. And I think what we calculated was something like 3 times more than what the Black Mesa coal mining operation was using up until it stopped operating in 2019. I think we calculated that it was going to be that much more water. And so we knew that that was going to have even more adverse impacts for our water on Black Mesa. So it was absolutely necessary to make a comment and to stay on top of this. And I would like for Taylor to go ahead and jump in here at any moment and talk a little bit about his end of this this work.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I was the lead author on our motions to intervene alongside Lisa Belenke, who's an attorney here at the center. We worked with Nicole and Robin Jackson at Dene Care and a number of different technical experts to look at this proposal, the 3 proposals for Black Mesa, and to scrutinize them in detail. And those comments are online. They're on TNA's website if anybody wants to read them. It's 52 pages of critique of People and Nature First proposal. But basically the comment said that these are huge proposals spanning 38,000 acres of new reservoir, 40 linear miles of Black Mesa's rim. They would require, 450,000 acre feet of water, which is more than Nevada's annual allocation of the Colorado River. Just in terms of evaporation alone, would more than double the amount of water that was used for coal slurry pumped out of Black Mesa's aquifers. It would industrialize land that was important for wildlife. It would displace people and land users. The list went on of problems. The other point that we saw, two more points. This is a very sloppy proposal. When we put it before technical experts, they said this is garbage. This is not well done. This is impossible. It's misleading. It's you know, this isn't a real proposal. This is garbage. They're just trying to get a foot in the door. And then lastly, the intervention made very clear that you know, like coal mining before, these proposals would simply require rural communities on Navajo to sacrifice more land and water so that electricity and profits could be exported to faraway cities. And in that way, it was actually just the same as coal, the same resource colonialism that had afflicted Black Mesa for generations now. So those comments were filed. We did media on it, got some good media, started to make the public aware of this. And that was on January 3rd, 2023. So we learned about this in the fall. We pulled the comments together, working together with everybody over the course of November and December. And then we filed it on January 3rd of 2023, which is just a little more than a year ago.
All right. Thank you, Nicole and Taylor, for that timeline on what brought us, how we got started in all this, how we got involved. And so you're right. There is a history of that extraction within our region. And that was a huge concern for a lot of us, that we don't want to repeat that same cycle again, especially with the water usage within our area that's already been impacted. So one other question that I wanted to ask, well, it's particular to Rachel. I want to know if you're able to tell us, what is FERC? I know you probably, we're going to hear that a lot, FERC. And so are you able to tell us who is FERC or what is FERC?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was blowing my nose. So FERC, that is an acronym, FERC, and what it stands for is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And they are an independent agency, a federal agency that is responsible for regulating any type of interstate energy transmission. And so this includes electricity, natural gas, oil, liquefied natural gas, etc. And they also regulate and license non-federal hydropower projects. And so the type of projects that we're talking about here on Black Mesa are a type of hydropower project. They're using water to generate power, and it's called a pumped storage hydropower project. And I can talk more about how those work if you want, but that's what FERC does. And it's typically a 5-person commission. There aren't 5 people on the commission currently, but there can be 5 people on this commission, and they're the ones that license these types of projects.
Awesome. Thank you for that good understanding of who FERC is from our perspective. So the next part of it I wanted to talk about is, now that we covered that part 1, which was intervening in e-filings with Nicole and Taylor, I wanted to transition us into developer meetings. So this one, we're going to have Percy, Herb, and Taylor again talking about what happened after that intervening e-filing, which kind of brought us to the developer meeting. So I understand Percy, Herb, and Taylor were there at these meetings, and so I wanted them to reflect on what happened at these meetings that led us in continuing this campaign even further. You want to go first, Taylor?
Sure, I'll start it out, but I know that Percy and Herb will have much more to say about this. One of the points that we raised in the motion to intervene was the fact that neither FERC nor People and Nature First, the pump storage company, had undertaken any sort of consultation with communities on Black Mesa or with the tribe, and they were going to the federal government first to seek permits for approval of these projects on the Navajo Nation, which was problematic for a lot of reasons, of repeated history with coal, with the developers going and seeking federal approvals. And so I think in response to that criticism, there was an early meeting with People and Nature First, and my take from that was that that these guys were the representatives were pretty hostile and aggressive, and were going to do whatever they thought they needed to do to advance their proposals before FERC, and it wasn't about getting communities on board as much as it was bullying the communities into acquiescence or getting out of the way of their plans. I'll leave it at that. That's my perception of that first meeting with them.
Thank you, Taylor. Herb, do you want to start out with how those meetings went from your perspective for the developer meetings?
Yes. First of all, none of us up here on the Mesa knew of the application by the applicant. We did not know what the proposal was until we learned from Nizhóní that there was an application. And we learned of the project after the application was filed. And we only learned of the proposal after the applicant had already been to the tribal offices in Winter Rock, because they showed us photos at that first meeting in Tuba City of them at the tribal offices, specifically the officials shaking hands with the applicant, the president of the Navajo Nation shaking hands with the applicant. And at the first meeting in Tuba City, it appeared that they had only gone to the Chief Chimbito chapter official, specifically the president of that chapter, who appeared at Tuba City as a proponent of the application. And we were surprised by that. And the other thing that sticks up in my mind at the meeting in Tuba City was the applicant was actually saying to the people that these types of projects are feasible. They've already been done all over the country. And they showed us photos of a project somewhere, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere up in the northern Midwest of the United States or the Northeast of the United States, where of course there are rivers and lakes and a lot more water than we have down here. And we challenged them when they did that. That is so different from our situation. How can you use a project like that to justify a project here in this area where we are facing a drought and the rivers are depleted and there are now needs to renegotiate old agreements that left us out of the use of the what little river we have down here. So that was that stands out in my mind. And the other is they explain that this project is feasible. There is water available. We could use water from the Colorado River or the San Juan River. But immediately everybody knew how ridiculous that sounded, because here people are fighting over the use of the depleted rivers that he mentioned. And no user of the Colorado River or the San Juan River is going to be willingly agree to pump those rivers up to the Mesa for this project. So we told them, you're actually intent on using the Navajo aquifer. That's what your really intent is. And don't tell us you're going to be using Colorado or San Juan. And those were the most noticeable things I read or I heard from the applicant. And the overall presentation, like Taylor mentioned, was really presented as if it's a done deal. We've been to Window Rock, we've been down to Phoenix, we've talked to FERC, and this is going to happen. And they did not like the voices of the people when they got a chance to speak. And they started saying, we really don't have time to be listening to all the objections. I just remember that atmosphere that we ran into at that Tuba City meeting. The other meeting was through, I think, a Zoom meeting, and the same thing. Our objections were minimized by the applicants. And I think it was emphasized to us, this company has the backing of investors who have the funds to do this. So it's going to happen, was that the way it was presented to us. That's what I remember. Thank you.
Yeah, Herb, for that insight into that meeting. So I just wanted to clarify with people out there, the meeting that Herb is talking about was the first meeting where community members were brought in to weigh in on their concerns with this and their perspective. There was a previous meeting that happened with a smaller group, which TNA was also a part of, with the developers. The first initial meeting happened with the developer and TNA and Taylor as well. And that was the first meeting. The second meeting is the one where community came in. So I just wanted to clarify that with people. The meeting that Herb was talking about is the second meeting where a lot of folks were invited, such as community members, council delegates, and community leaders as well. So Percy, or sorry, Herb, for that insight. Percy, do you want to add anything?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
okay. Okay, Nana. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. I thought I indicated earlier that my name is Percy Deal. I live in Big Mountain, which is right on top of Black Mesa community, Nizhóní. At that meeting in Tuba City, which the developer apparently arranged to try to convince everybody else, there was quite a few turnout, maybe about 20, 25, 30 people that showed up. And the man told us that he's already been to, like the judge said just moments ago, that he met with the president, meaning Jonathan Nez. And then he also met with the recently elected right after his inauguration. He also indicated that he met with the Division of Resources, the committee. He also indicated that he met with the division, or rather the Resource and Development Committee. He said he met with them, and then also the Division of Resources, including the Water Department. And while meeting with the Water Department, he wanted to find out how much water there really is. And he came back with the message to us that there was plenty of water. There was plenty of water to be used and so forth. And there was a lot of objection by the audience, including myself. I was very much opposed to this project because it was a huge project, much, much bigger than the water that was being used by the Navajo generating station. The project was asking for 450,000 acre-feet a year, 450,000 acre-feet of the water from 3 different sources, as Herb described. But we also knew that right then and there, we told him that he's not going to get the water from San Juan because of certain federal legislation that blocked the use of water on the Arizona side. He also mentioned that he was interested in using the water from California, or rather Colorado. And we told him that that water is being under negotiation, and there was a lot of user, and there was a cutback and so forth. And the only water that was left for sure was the aquifer. And sure enough, I guess somewhere along the way, he learned that he can't use the water from San Juan, he can't use the water from Colorado. So he zeroed in on the aquifer. And that was really disturbing because we just went through 50 years of Peabody and Kayenta mine pumping the aquifer, using it to support their operation. He also indicated that his project would provide jobs and water and electricity for the local. When he says the local, he was talking about Chilchimbito, that he met with the people of Chilchimbito chapter, and they told him that they're in need of water and they're in need of electricity. And since he's going to be in the water business and producing electricity, they asked him if he could provide those resources to the local community. And he indicated that he will. He promised them that he will. But I think everybody knows that none of these industry provides services to the immediate area. Look at all these huge power line, transition line that crisscrosses the Navajo reservation. There isn't one that connects to a local community, one house. But then there never was, and there never would be. But he would be using the same transmission line, and he told the Kayenta or Chilchimbito that he will provide electricity. And that just isn't possible. The same way with the water, since he's going to be dealing with water that will be used to make electricity, I don't see how that could be done. He would have to really downsize the project at the base of the Mesa in order to provide water to the local community. And then the other thing was that at that first meeting in Tuba City, the Chilchimbito officials were there, and they indicated that they were in full support because they were going to get the water and electricity and some jobs. The job that this guy was talking about was that during the construction, there will be about 1,000 jobs provided, but after the construction ends, there will be 100 jobs, and that will be for the next 100 years. One thing that was very clear at that meeting was that everybody objected to it, except the Chilchimbito. And it just seems like he never got that message. I guess in his mind, I mean, we're just local people, don't know a whole lot of things, and that he could just invite himself, which he did, and walk over the gate. The community promised them this and that, and they would go for it. And I guess that's the way, pretty much how he saw us. But my impression was that we were not going to allow that to happen. We were going to stand up to this billion-dollar industry, and it's not because we don't want jobs. It's not because we don't want water. It's because the aquifer that we were using, that we now have, we don't know how much is left, and we don't know if it's contaminated. And water is very, very important to all of us. You got to have water for everything, every day. And these economic development, roads and other development, it requires water. So if this man takes everything, then we really are stuck and not be able to have any development, no future. I mean, this is for 100 years. And even somebody that will be born tonight, an infant, that infant will never see the end of this project. I mean, that's how big this whole project is. So that was pretty much my impression, that day when we met with the man. Thank you.
Yeah, Percy, for the insight into that second meeting, but first meeting for the community, but second meeting in total. I also wanted to then go into this next part. So part 3, you heard from the communities, from the community members here on what how that meeting went and how interesting it was to hear this and this developer's perspective on water use here in the Southwest and on Navajo, and particularly the Black Mesa region. And so I think even like Percy and Herb had mentioned, there was numerous opposition citing the water concerns of the impacts to our groundwater if this project were to proceed. And I think with that, we eventually transitioned into starting up this campaign. So we knew that this project was still in the forefront of this developer's mind to think that it was going to proceed. And so with that, we needed as community members that we needed to educate not only our own communities, but surrounding communities off of Black Mesa and near Black Mesa. And so that's when we eventually started our hashtag #NoBMPSP. So again, the Black Mesa Pump Storage Project it's a large name, it's a long name to kind of put out there. So what we've done is we've abbreviated that into BMPSP, the Black Mesa Pump Storage Project campaign. And our goal was to educate our communities to make them aware of what's happening, what's being proposed, another project in our region that's potentially going to impact our water. And with that, we were able to also garner community support from this campaign, this education campaign, which led to chapter resolutions. And so from this campaign, we were able to get the support through chapter resolutions of 19 resolutions in total, from those on Black Mesa and then those at the base and off Black Mesa. And so that was how the outcome of this campaign was to educate our communities on what is this project, who is proposing this project, where is it going to be located, what is a pump storage project, because a lot of times communities were not had no idea what was going on, especially our communities here on Black Mesa. For example, I'm coming from the community of Hard Rock, Nizhóní, and when we presented at that chapter on what was happening, a lot of them weren't aware of what was happening on the northern edge. And yeah, so that was kind of where that happened. Nicole, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I wanted to just let the audience know a couple of things about the way that communities up here on the Navajo Nation work. Hold on just a second. I'm reading my notes here. One of the things that I think that the audience should understand is that when companies come in to work with the Navajo Nation, it isn't written anywhere the way that they should engage communities. And the Navajo Nation also doesn't have a real specific process about how communities should be notified. So the way that companies deal, who want to do projects on the reservation, deal with the Navajo Nation is that they usually just reach out to the Navajo Nation government officials, whether it be people in the Navajo Nation Council, which is the legislative body of the Navajo Nation, or else straight to the president of the Navajo Nation, which represents, of course, the executive body of the Navajo Nation. And the Navajo Nation government is really much modeled the same way it is modeled in the same way that the United States government is modeled, with a 3-branch government. So we've really taken up a lot of the ways that the federal government is structured with our small tribal government. So when nature people, and by the looks of things up to this point, it looked like nature people first had only engaged the tribal government at that level. And it was obvious that they hadn't reached out to any of the other communities except Chichimito chapter. How that happened, I still don't know. But by the time we had our second meeting in which we invited members of the Black Mesa communities, the same community people that had endured 50 years of mining up until this point and we're seeing the impacts of 50 years of groundwater being used to support industry. We realized that they didn't understand the community that they were about to place this, for whom this project was going to be placed in their backyard. And they hadn't engaged in any of the people's concerns. So I think it's important at this point also to say that at Nizhóní, we realized that community work is kind of like the foundation of the work that we do. And even though there are officials out there who say, well, the Navajo Nation works, by government to government relationship, since it isn't plainly written out, we don't have to engage communities. That's not the position that we take. We always believe that the power lies with the people. And the first and foremost way that the people can actually mobilize and take action on behalf of themselves and their communities is through education. And so that's the reason that I know that when Adrian and I talked about it, we felt like this community educational campaign is definitely the key to getting ahead of this project that was proposing to use Navajo water, even though many specifics were not plainly written. There was a lot of things that were not clear about this project, but based on the information that we knew filed with FERC, we had some very good, we were making some really good assumptions, we felt like. And that is, like, as Percy mentioned before, that we knew that the groundwater was probably the target for this project. It was going to be the groundwater that was going to be used to support this project. And so we went and educated the communities the best that we could with the information that we had up until that point. And so at this point, I just want to hand it right back over to Adrian, because he's the one that led this community education project along with Delores.
Yeah, Nicole, for providing the insight for some of our followers who are just now understanding what's going on. So going back to our community of Hard Rock, an example would be our community of Hard Rock, which is on Black Mesa as well, the Black Mesa region, and is also an impacted community. They were not aware about what was going on. And so that's where this education piece came in, to try and to talk about what's happening, and eventually what's being proposed on our Black Mesa region, because again, a lot of our communities are still impacted by coal mining in regards to water. And so here's another project that was proposing to use 3 times that water amount, and which is outrageous. And so really just education is a huge piece on a lot of the work that we had done, like Nicole had mentioned. And also, I think really making it more understanding and digestible. And for example, one thing that Percy had mentioned was that we need to really make the people understand how much this water amount is. And so we were able to utilize, for example, this much amount of water would somewhat equate to this amount of water. For example, you could look at it at 55-gallon barrels. How many 55-gallon barrels would it take to match that 450,000 acre feet? So it's just making those comparisons, because again, those are large numbers, and sometimes when you put that into Navajo, it's a little bit more tricky. But when you give them things to compare it to, like for example, you have Wheatfields Lake, just kind of making those comparisons. How many Wheatfields Lakes would it take to kind of match that water usage? So those are kind of some key pieces that I would say really went into this education piece, was talking about the water impacts, and also where is this information coming from? Again, a lot of our information that we pulled from the applications that were submitted through FERC by Nature and People First, which is how we were able to put together this education piece. So in total, again, as I mentioned, we've got 19 chapter resolutions that came from these communities that felt the need to act as well, and by supporting this resolution to oppose this project. There were most of the Black Mesa regions we were able to get to chapters supported the resolutions, especially the Dzikhlajin Regional Council. I want to say hehat to the Dzikhlajin Regional Council if anybody's listening from that council. They were the first group to pass a resolution opposing this project. But with that, I wanted to carry this over to Delores. Delores, would you like to explain kind of like from your perspective how this education piece went in conjunction with your experience with Save the Confluence?
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Okay. Good morning. Yes. Yeah, Adrian and the rest of the team here. I joined this group probably over a year now. And I remember they wanted to do education at the chapter level. And so I joined them, and what I remember was I had a flashback of what we went through when Save the Confluence was fighting the Escalate project. And it just seemed like at the chapter level, the chapter officials are targeted by these developers. And I knew that. And when I went to the chapters, some of the chapter officials, not all of them, but some of them, they kind of like steered the wheel, it seemed like. And that's what we went through when we were working with when I was working with Save the Confluence, and we hit so many chapters during that time, educating the people too. And when I traveled with Adrian, you know, I mentioned to him that it was really, sometimes it just got really worse at the chapter level. And that's why a lot of times I just don't really like to go back to the chapter. And that's where everything they just pitted us together against one another, the community. And then sometimes the chapter officials are involved. I remember one chapter in Loop, Adrian presented, and there were a lot of people, I would say about 35, somewhere around there. And after he presented, you know, people spoke, and there was only one opposition, but at the end, he voted with the group. So I feel like education is important when things like this happen, because the stakeholders at the home level, they're not notified, and they just come in, and just like Herb and Percy said, that they just tell people that they went to the president, to the council. So we just had to do a lot of educating, and amongst the council delegates too. So I just felt like the campaign to educating the people was really important. And, you know, I spoke to them, some of the people that didn't speak English, understand English, you know, I was there to interpret what Adrian was putting out there. So I was really glad when all the 19 chapters passed resolutions, and the idea of educating the people was really important too. And I think that our leaders need to listen in too, because when we got to their level a few years back with the Escalate project, you know, they just didn't want to listen. But I guess behind closed doors, they were looking at the documents. And when the vote came, You know, only 2 delegates opposed our legislation to oppose the escalate. So if community leaders, Navajo Nation leaders are out there listening, I think, you know, the people at the grassroots, at the community have voted for you. And you told them that you were gonna help them, you were gonna listen to them. You know, an example, just what happened with this 19 chapters, all the people spoke and said no. But you know, that's the kind of impact that us voters have. So listen to the people at the community level, and it's just too bad that the companies come in and try to divide the people, and it gets ugly when these people, developers, you know, they don't live here. You know, we are relatives. They just destroy that. And it was really sad to see that. Yeah.
Delores, thank you for providing that insight. That was really, it was really good to hear that, because again, sometimes with this work, you're like just going, and sometimes you've got your ups and downs, but for that, especially with Loop Chapter, yeah, that was really good to hear the community speak up and to ask questions, because as one of our organizers had mentioned, she said, you know, when you have talked about good information or things that they can comprehend is when they ask questions. And that's the key thing, is that once they ask questions, that means that they're understanding and they want to know more, or they might have a concern with something. So I think that was a huge thing, especially with Loop Chapter, to have those folks really ask those really good questions, especially regarding water. So with that, that was kind of our pump storage project campaign. So within total, again, we have 19 chapter resolutions that supported, that opposed this pump storage project. And there's about 19. So we have the Decision Regional Council, we have Hard Rock Chapter, the Chinle Agency Grazing Committee, Pinon Chapter, Whippoorwill Chapter, Rough Rock Chapter, Black Mesa Kitzili Chapter, Kayenta Chapter, Forest Lake Chapter, District 4 Grazing Committee, Talani Lake Chapter, Lachi Chapter, Denahotso Chapter, Navajo Mountain Chapter, Botaway/Gap Chapter, Coppermine Chapter, and Bird Springs Chapter, Western Agency Grazing Committee, and then lastly, Loop Chapter. So those are kind of the chapters that were able to support, or to, sorry, I keep saying support, that were able to pass resolutions opposing this project. So Nicole, do you want to chime in?
Yes, I just want to also say for the viewers out there that across the Navajo Nation, there are 110 chapters. We call them chapters, but they're local community government units. And these are the places that the communities go to have their monthly meetings to talk about community issues, sometimes regional issues, sometimes Navajo Nation-wide issues. So community chapters are really places to go if, like say at the county level or at the state level, people want to educate or inform the communities about, you know, either legislation or something that's coming down, changes that they should expect. So communities are places where these things happen. And then the way that the Navajo communities work is through what's called a resolution process. So if the community wants to take an official stand on some issue, they pass resolution. And so whether the Navajo Nation government actually takes the action that the community wants them to take, that's a separate thing. But definitely it helps to inform and the Navajo Nation's decision and the decision of others like federal agencies. So I think, so it's important to understand this, and really it's a place where community people can hear information, ask questions, and discuss things in more detail. And so it's a very important place to be. It's a very important place to engage community members. And it's probably the only place to engage community members in an effective way. So I just wanted to also provide that little background on this campaign that Adrian and Delores led.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So you're going to hear those terms like chapter house quite a bit. So thank you again, Nicole, for reminding us like what is the chapter and what is this whole process. So this next part, I wanted to transition into part 4. And with part 4, we're going to hear from Rachel to, she already kind of already explained what FERC is, but we can just come back to that in regards to what is FERC, and then also pump storage projects, kind of like what's the connection there with FERC and pump storage projects. Yeah, I'll have Rachel go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah. So just a little review. FERC, which is what we often call this agency, which stands for FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, regulates all types of energy, interstate energy permitting, and that includes regulating hydropower projects, non-federal hydropower projects specifically. And so traditional type of hydropower projects are like what we see at Glen Canyon Dam, for example, on the Colorado River, which is a dam on a river, and energy is generated by the water moving through the turbines, kind of through its natural river flow. There's a different type of hydropower project, and that's what these Black Mesa projects were proposed to be, and they're called pump storage hydropower projects. And Nizhóní has a great description of them on their website about how they work, but essentially it's creating an upper reservoir and a lower reservoir and cycling water between those two. And as the water goes down from the upper one to the lower one, it moves the turbine and generates power. And then when there's excess power in the system, water is moved back up to the upper one. And so it's cycling between the two. And we're seeing quite a lot of these pump storage hydropower projects increasingly being proposed nationwide. And because there's some argument that they are a, quote, greener type of energy because they have less CO2 emissions than coal plants, for example, in general. Of course, there are other big downsides that can be associated with them. They tend to be large industrial projects that really disturb the natural environments that they're built in. They tend to be targeted in canyons or areas where there are already big elevation relief. So Black Mesa is a good example of that, where there's a big elevation change in a short span, and so they can put a reservoir on top and have a reservoir down below, and they're taking advantage of that natural landform. And the consequence of that is often that these projects have big environmental disturbances for wildlife and communities and just the whole general area. And then, of course, I think as Herb was speaking to earlier, context is really relevant. In places where there's abundant water for doing this type of project, that's a very different equation. But to propose this type of project using the amount of water that was proposed with these projects in a really arid desert environment where there's no existing surface water and they would be entirely dependent on groundwater is very problematic, as we've all been talking about. And so that's how pump storage hydro generally works. again, it might have good application in some circumstances, but in general, and in this context, it definitely was a not a green energy and not a renewable energy in any way, shape, or form. Is there anything else you want me to say?
Yeah, there's one question that I saw that came up was that one person asked was like, how were they able to submit, Nature and People First was able to submit an application through FERC without talking with the nation?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So, FERC has a pretty outdated, obsolete process for dealing with hydropower permits and licenses. And I want to be clear, like, there's kind of two stages in the process. What they had applied for, what Nature and People First had applied for, is what's called a preliminary permit. And what a preliminary permit does is it maintains a developer's priority, like gives them priority in line to file for a full licensure application, which is a 50-year license. And if they get the preliminary permit, they get 3 years to gather data and do studies to see how feasible the project can be. Under the current rules governing FERC, the developer is legally allowed to submit a preliminary permit application and also receive approval for that application from FERC without without the consent of the tribe whose land it may be proposed upon. So that's how the rules are currently structured. And there have been cases in the past where a project has been proposed on a tribe's land. In fact, on the Little Colorado River a number of years ago, there were a couple of projects proposed, and the Navajo Nation opposed them explicitly, and FERC said, no, that's not a problem. This is just a preliminary permit, and we'll get to consultation with the tribes at a later stage in the process. And so that's obviously a big problem from a perspective of tribal sovereignty, from a perspective of the issues Nicole is talking about, for needing to consult with the communities who are directly affected by these projects. But those rules aren't established in how FERC operates yet. There are efforts to change those. And I think when we get to the next part of the discussion, when we talk about what's next, there's some really exciting movement indicating that FERC may be open to changing how it operates. But that's why it's been possible up to this point. And it's a big problem in how FERC operates.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. That was good. I'm glad we were able to help answer that comment from someone in the Facebook Live. Lastly, we have our part 5, which is our final part of all of this reflection on FERC decision. So I wanted to give this time to Nicole and others, whoever else wants to chime in on this next part, is like, what happens next? What was the decision that was made? And what happens next from here, especially with this work of all of this? I'll leave it to Nicole. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you again for that, Adrian. And that was a great educational campaign. I think that it's important for our listeners out there to know that that's kind of the cornerstone of Nizhóní's work, is community education like that. And we believe that it's important for communities who will be impacted by projects such as this to be able to have a voice, to be able to take to be able to be to use the processes in place to be able to either make a comment or take an official position and be heard. So that's going to first of all, that's going to continue to be our work. The next thing I want to say about this project is that while we like to think that this is the end of this project, it might not be the end of this project. And so it's important to stay alert and to continue to work with allies like the Center for Biological Diversity, American Rivers, and others in our region to keep an eye on projects such as this that propose to use excessive amounts of resources that are limited in our region, such as water. So it's important for us as an organization to maintain good relations and good communications with our allies, and that includes the Navajo Nation government. For us, working closely with Navajo Nation leadership is key to the work that we do. A lot of times, and because of our particular relationship with government agencies, and I mentioned before that they will always quote to you that we have a government to government relationship. And a lot of times that means that they can bypass the communities, go straight to, like, say, the Navajo Nation president, have dialogue only with him. And that's good enough. And that's how these projects show up in different places of the Navajo Nation. And the community is always the one going, what just happened here? And why were we not notified? That's how that happens. It's very at the very top level in the way that the federal government of the United States first established its relationship to the indigenous communities. And that unfortunately hasn't changed very much. And they continue to rely on that today. And it creates hardship for communities. The other thing that I want to emphasize, I think, is that especially for Diné audience out there, and probably for the Hopi audience out there also, is that as Indigenous people, we never relinquished our individual sovereignties or our community sovereignty. So it's important that when projects come through and insist on only speaking to the government, the highest level of government, that's not acceptable. That communities and individuals should continue to maintain and assert their individual sovereignty as Indigenous people wherever it is that they live. And I think that that's something that we want to continue to emphasize as we continue to do this work. There'll always be, in our experience, there'll always be a company coming through with some really crazy project. We haven't seen too many projects that just make sense in our region. And a lot of this is because companies will come from these places, just like it was mentioned before, where projects like this make sense, like say in a region where there's an abundance of water. And then they come here and they think that it's going to be the same experience, and it's not. This is the nature of companies. They come from all over the world, all parts of the country, don't understand the Southwest region, the Four Corners region, and don't understand the history that the Navajo Nation in its history has committed and probably overcommitted precious resources like groundwater and surface water to this type of industry. And we can't continue to do that. We can't continue to support industry in this way. So it's important, especially as Diné people that we understand this history, we understand where we're coming from, and we understand where we stand with our resources today. And in comparison to the way that the rest of the world is developing, we have to understand that we can't develop our communities in the same way. So I think that that's going to continue to be the basis of our educational campaigns, is to really pinpoint what kind of development is sustainable here on Navajo. What kind of development is sustainable here in the Four Corners region. There might be places off the reservation where development is being proposed, and we have to understand how that's going to impact communities that are on the reservation as well. So we have to be prepared to think in that way, and to therefore try to advocate for the type of development that we want in our region, even if it's off the reservation, because those developments are going to be dependent on the same resources that we are dependent on, namely water. So once again, it's a lot of the organizing that we do is about water. It continues to be the foundation of the of our advocacy. Going forward, it will continue to be that way. And so I think, I'm not sure if, I feel like I've covered most of what I wanted to say, but I'd like to allow for others to also make a comment if they would like to at this point. I think the most important thing is to just keep an eye on this project and see if it comes back again in a different form. The other thing I almost forgot is just as important, is that this project and this company had actually got the support of one community situated at the base of Black Mesa, and has a little bit of jurisdiction on top of the plateau, on the Black Mesa Plateau. I think it's important to go back and try to connect the right resources and with this community so that they get their needs met. Because for whatever reason that they gave their full support to this company, whatever needs that community has, it's important to understand that, and it's important to really match them up with the right resources. And I think that's also going to be one of our next steps, is to ensure that our communities get the help that they need so that they can develop in a way that helps them, but also doesn't hurt surrounding communities, and doesn't require the overuse of any one resource. And once again, I'm going to say water, because water seems to be the big focal point of this project that just got its permits denied by FERC. So I think that is going to be our next steps as Nizhóní, to continue working with our allies in this way.
Thank you, Nicole, for that. I'm glad you were able to cover all those key points in that last part 5. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, for those that are just now joining us, you're probably like, what's this live stream about? What's going on? What are these people on the screen? I would like to turn it to Taylor. Are you able to kind of talk about the FERC decision? Like, what happened? Like, what did FERC decide? And what was the reason for that decision on denying these permits? So briefly, if you could tell us about that.
Sure. FERC last week issued decisions on each of the 3 Black Mesa pump storage projects, in addition to a number of other pump storage projects in the Navajo Nation. And it denied the FERC denied the permit applications. And their reasoning was pretty straightforward. The reasoning was that if projects proposed on tribal land don't have tribal support, we're not going to approve them. And they stated this in the context of a new policy, new FERC policy that is within their discretion and their authority to make and render. And so it basically creates a situation now going forward that if proponents of projects on tribal land want to actually see those go forward, they first need to obtain the consent and approval of the tribes on whose land those projects would be located. So, like I said, pretty straightforward. If you think about, what that means, I think it deserves some careful consideration about what this means going forward. Can a proponent go, right to the president's office and get support for a project without engaging communities, as occurred here? That could be the case. And so I think it warrants everyone reading the decision and thinking about what it means going forward. But certainly, in our opinion at the center, it represents a good step forward for sovereignty, for tribal sovereignty, as it relates to private energy development advanced through the federal government.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor, for that, giving our audience, for those that just chimed in, what's going on. But I wanted to also jump to Rachel to talk about, so there was that part that Taylor had mentioned, was the decision to deny the permits, but there was also another part that was also brought up in that decision as well. Are you able to talk a little bit more about that, a little bit more?
Yeah, I would love to. So and Taylor was alluding to that in the decision that rejected the 3 Black Mesa pump storage project proposals, which came out Thursday. It just categorically said we deny the developer a preliminary permit for these 3 projects. And in their explanation for their reasoning, which is what Taylor was referring to, they described that the new policy of FERC as the commission is to not issue preliminary permits for projects proposing to use tribal lands if the tribe on whose land the project is located opposes the permit. So in this circumstance, because the Navajo Nation had explicitly opposed the 3 Black Mesa projects in their motions to intervene, that was kind of the primary reason that FERC said we can't issue these preliminary permits because the tribe has not given consent to them. And in reference to what I was talking about before, that's a huge change in how FERC has historically operated. It's like a 180 turn. And I agree with Taylor. It's a turning in the direction of a better way. Whereas in the past, they often issued these preliminary permits just pretty freely and irrespective of whether a tribe had been consulted or consenting to it. They have, as of a couple of days ago, articulated that their policy is now different. However, I think kind of to build upon what Taylor said, in we need to think about what that really means or looks like. In their decision, it's they don't describe in detail what that policy means or looks like. They don't say, here's what consent from a tribe means, or here's what consultation with a tribe means. It's not spelled out in any specific way. so I think, you know, there's going to be ongoing advocacy needed to make that policy robust. And secondly, just because FERC has sort of established this quote unquote new policy in this decision, it does not legally change the rules that govern FERC. And so it's not binding. And so there will be ongoing effort to basically codify or solidify that new policy into their official rules, so that the ways that FERC mandates that developers work with tribes if a project is proposed on their land are spelled out and durable over time and legally binding. As it is right now, it's possible that if the commission changed, or the people who make up the commission as they change, or if the chairperson of the commission changed, that policy could change. So it's a great step in the right direction, and a huge reversal of how they've operated in the past. So it's really, really good. And now we need to work to take it that step further to make it binding and to really spell out, this is what is meant by tribal consultation and consent. So.
Thank you. Yeah, Rachel, that was a good explanation. I'm glad Taylor and Rachel, you were all able to kind of split that in half, that discussion, which is great. I'm gonna have to say that concludes our part 5 on what's next. And what I wanted to do now is I wanted to go to each speaker if they had one last comments or remarks that they wanted to give before we close out. I'll give each speaker a chance if they would like, starting with Delores. Is there any last comments or anything else you wanted to share with us, with our audience?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to tell the audience, and if this information reaches other developers, that we treasure our land, and it's important to us, and the water is becoming scarce, and especially here on the Navajo Nation. And as I always have said, that when the Bennett freeze was put upon us, the Navajos and Hopis, we didn't get a chance to move back. You know, nobody worked with us to try to move back and go live back in the land that we lived on. And then instead, other projects, when they come in, it seems like they are priority. So we do have a hydro developer in our area at the Big Canyon. There were 3 projects that he was looking at in the area, but now it's come down to 1. So hopefully he gets this message that, you know, we will fight to the end, and to save our land, and for the species, for our relatives that cannot are not able to voice their opinion. And a lot of the people here on the reservation, it seems like they just kind of ignore what's going on. As such, we have here what's going on until it happens to them. Recently, there was a chapter meeting that I went to, and some of the people that I haven't seen, they spoke here, and it was another pipeline that was coming through the nation and around this area. And so we have to be, we have to keep our ears and eyes open and try to listen and educate ourselves about what's going on out there. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, Delores, for those closing remarks. I'll turn to Herb. Would you like to say any last minute items or any reflections you have?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the organizations that have been helping us. Twin Jonah, American Rivers Center for Biological Diversity, and everybody else for helping, because if it weren't for them, I'm afraid that the application probably would not have been revealed to the residents until more final decisions were made to approve them. And I want to thank the organizations for helping. The closing thought that I have is that we have to remain ever vigilant, and because we have a long history, we've had some hard lessons. We have learned what can be done in the interest of developers without the approval of the local people. We are dealing with a definition of government to government that's very dangerous for us at the local level, because the way that definition goes currently is developers only have to deal with Window Rock and the BIA, and leaving out the local people. And it's always been our position that if the discussion is to focus on rights, the local people do have rights traditionally. It's always been recognized that the local people in our society have a say in the use of the resources in the area where they live. And people now commonly refer to that right as customary use rights. And that has to be developed into recognizing that the communities at the local level do have a right to approval, discussion and approval of these type of projects. And that's what I mean when there has to be a revision of what is by government to government. And the danger here is that almost happened, because these people went to Window Rock and the BIA first before they ever saw a need to come to the local people. The other thing is we have to be forever vigilant, because the in-aquifer is the only source of water that we have. Yes, we have ponds and rivers and washes, but those are not accessible to us here on Black Mesa. And therefore, we have to guard against industrial use of the one remaining source of water that we have. There's always a risk. There's been a risk of depletion and contamination. And though we have raised our voices, our concerns that we need help in studying, analyzing the extent of the depletion and whether there is contamination. Our own government and the BIA, in our minds, have never done that. Not to the extent that we think is necessary. Yet, they keep receiving these type of applications. And the history teaches us that we cannot allow the continuation of the system the way it's been structured. We have to be vigilant and we have to fight for the firm establishment of our use rights of the land and the minerals on that land. And that sad history is that we've been treated as a colony for the exploitation of the resources we have for use by other people away from our land. And that's what this project was. It's a continuation of that exploitation of our resources for the revenue and comfort of other people, not the local people. So I just want to restate the need for being vigilant in these type of efforts. Thank you.
Yeah, Herb, thank you for sharing that, and also really having you on here, joining us for this reflection and discussion, especially as somebody coming from where the near the proposed North project would have been. So yeah, again, for joining us. I want to jump to Percy. Do you have any last minute comments that you would like to make?
Yeah, can you?
Oh.
Okay, thank you. I guess my comment would be there was some discussion about the decision under the new policy that the commission are working under. In that same decision, it allows nature and people first to reapply. So that door is open to them. However, they can't do it the way they have done. They have to follow the Navajo rules, the Navajo process, as to trying to get their project out there on the ground. So we need to keep our ears open and our eyes open that they do have an opportunity to, or rather they do have an option to reapply if they so want to. And I'm thinking that they probably will, but they probably won't do it soon. I also have a feeling that they already got in contact with the local congressional representative that represents this area. That will be Eli Crane. Eli Crane is one of those congressional delegates that is very much interested in development, extraction. That's what he is very much interested in, and he's a Republican, and he's going to continue pushing for these stores to be wide open. they're probably asking him to get in contact with the Department of Energy and let them know that the refusal project denies the people, particularly down in Phoenix and Tucson, Las Vegas, of the valuable electricity. And that all he was trying to do was to help them replace what they have lost as a result of the NGS closure and the Peabody mine closure. That's all he was trying to do. So he would also be pushing very, very hard to make sure there's a new president in there that would have a different attitude toward these type of development. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I think we should continue to push the Navajo Nation and the BRA that there needs to be a study of the groundwater that we have to make sure that we know how much there is in the ground, and to make sure that they're not contaminated, and if they are contaminated, how are those things cleaned up and so forth. And then the other study is having to do, again, with water where natural springs used to be. Where were the natural springs at? And we know that they're all gone, but that needs to be brought to the surface on paper, and also to show the native plants that have disappeared as a result of Peabody and the lack of groundwater, and also the wild animals that used to be here. I really believe that these things need to be documented, studied. We need to get some resources. When we do have these are like a weapon, like a very strong data that we need. Rather than just saying these things in words, they would be done by a qualified professional people that would do the study. And finally, I would like to encourage all these other people, organizations, that they need to pick up a copy of that refusal letter, denial letter from the Energy Commission on this very issue that we're talking about. Study it and start strategizing accordingly. And I think that will be very, very helpful to across the land. Express my appreciation to Adrian and for the arrangement for the meeting and so forth. Everybody else that was involved. Those people that are out there that are not part of the organization, but they're deeply concerned about the about protecting their water, their land, their language, their culture, their future, to really look at what's happening. You see, and these guys aren't finished. They're going to come back. These guys and other people like them that are extractive industry, they're going to be back. So I like for us, all of us, to stay together, to continue to talk to each other, continue to come up with strategies and plan. Like one of them is scheduled a week from today in Tuba City, having to do with the hauling of uranium through the Navajo reservation. These type of things, we need to be, like Herb says, be vigilant and keeping our eyes and ears open. Then once again, I want to thank everybody.
Percy, for those comments. We have less than 15 minutes left, 20 minutes left, but I wanted to also jump to Rachel if you had any last minute comments.
Just want to express gratitude for all the incredible work that Nizhóní has done on behalf of educating the community and getting so many chapter resolutions out in opposition to these projects and in meeting with the developers, and y'all have done just such incredible work, and I think it is a big reason that the outcome has been favorable, and I agree that it's very likely that we haven't seen the last of this developer, and definitely probably haven't seen the last of these types of projects being proposed, and so we have to remain vigilant and keep working at it and keep pushing to make the rules that govern FERC better and force FERC to do better. And so that's wholly true, and also it's absolutely true that everybody deserves a huge congratulations and a huge moment of celebration for preventing these horrible projects from going forward and protecting the water in Black Mesa. So just major gratitude to Nizhóní, to Center for Biological Diversity, to Save the Confluence, and all the other activists out there on the ground doing the work.
Thank you, Rachel. Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. Gratitude from me on behalf of the Center for Biological Diversity for everyone's work here. The advocacy around these projects has shown how local organizing can change national policy. And I think that's very important, and it's a huge step in the right direction in terms of the national policy change that we've seen here. So I just, we have tremendous gratitude for having been invited to help however we can in this. It's an honor for me and for us to work with you all. The organizing that TNA and Save the Confluence did with chapters has just been tremendous, and yeah, thank you to everyone. Thanks to TNA and to Rachel and American Rivers and Save the Confluence, and to Percy and Herb and all the community members who have been voicing concern and doing work. And thanks for everyone to tuning in today. So
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. And lastly, we will conclude with Nicole.
Yeah, I just want to also say thank you. I'm also really grateful for the coalition that we formed to fight off this very wasteful, this tremendously ridiculous project here that was being proposed. But I think that this is not the end of seeing crazy projects like this. I think that those of us that have been working with our communities for a long time have seen plenty of projects like this come through, and I think there'll be plenty more. I think one of the things that I feel like I should say is that people always wonder, maybe they wonder how they could best support and help movements like this, and help support communities that are fighting off projects. A lot of time communities feel like they're alone, their voice doesn't matter. We want to change that. And you know, if you're part of this community in which these projects are being proposed, please get involved. Please get involved with the local government level. Sometimes it feels like you're alone and you've got the entire community opposing you, but it's really important to state what you feel like is true. And the education that we did was just based on the documents that were filed with FERC. So whatever we knew of the project based on those documents is what we relayed to the community in a way that they could understand it. And I think just that is important. And so if there is a project that comes through, don't feel alone, break it down for the community, and get that information out there. That's the way to start. For people outside the Navajo Nation, we have coalitions out there that do this same type of work, that are happy to help, that have more resources than we do, that might have attorneys and other scientists working with them, that have another area of expertise that we don't have. It's important. We understand, and we've learned early on that this is important, is to create those communications and those partnerships in order to work through campaigns like the one that we created at Nizhóní. So it is definitely not just an individual effort. That's also important. And then for those that are in government level positions and that could work in that capacity, there are so many policies that need to be tackled. Lots of them are very old, like the one here with FERC that Rachel and Taylor described. And that is the one that lays out that the government to government relationships and how agencies have said that they would deal with tribes. These are all still in place. So it is important for people who are at that capacity where they have the opportunity to change policy to go and tackle it. This one in particular, it needs to change. I think that while my personal opinion of the decision, FERC's decision to deny these permits to the company that proposed to do this project, is that while the Navajo Nation had already intervened and taken a position, I truly believe that these 19 or so chapter resolutions stating the official position of these communities in opposition to this project took that, what might have been a decision that had been kind of teetering on the line, clearly across to a no position. And I think that was all due to the communities. So council delegates, the president of the Navajo Nation, chairman of indigenous tribes like the Hopi, can step in there and say, we need these policies to be changed. We need companies that are coming through proposing to do these projects to engage these communities in this way. I mean, they would have to also define how they want communities to be engaged in a respectful way, to clearly state what the project is what kind of resources the project is going to require, those kinds of things. How many times the community is engaged, those kinds of things. That's all really important, because in our experience with this company, Nature People First, we were, you know, just like Herb said and others said on this this little session here that we're having, is that at many points in time in our engagement with this company, we were pitted against our own community members. We were being told that we were preventing economic development, that we were against renewable energy, which, you know, obviously this project is an example of that. However, the very specifics of this project required enormous amounts of water and required basically the destruction of the north end of Black Mesa. And it was a project that would require thousands of acres of land. So many more of our people would be displaced, as well as the resources and the wildlife. So these are things that I think leadership, this is in their ball court. This is something that they can immediately begin working on. So if you're wondering how you can help out, there are many things that people in different capacities can do. And so I've just laid out a couple of things, but please continue to follow Nizhóní Center for Biological Diversity, American Rivers, and see to find out more about the work that we're doing, and sign up for our monthly newsletter. I think that's Adrian's line, but I'm stealing it from him for now. But that's really all I wanted to end with. Thanks a lot for the campaign and the good work that has been done.
Yeah, Nicole, for those closing remarks. You're exactly right. I was going to close with that, but you snatched it. But let me give people a visual. So again, if you want to stay connected with Nizhóní and what we're doing, this is fairly new, our newsletter / email listing. So if you go to our website, nizhóní.org, and you scroll down here, you can subscribe to our email listing here if you want to stay up to date on what's going on. Maybe there's a call to action, or maybe there be part of our newsletter or something. Or if you would just want to share information that we're putting out there, this is a good way to subscribe and also reshare that newsletter. Other than that, I think that's going to conclude our live stream here. And also, I would like to give a shout out as well to Black Mesa United. There's another group up on Black Mesa at the mine site called Black Mesa United. They are a very knowledgeable group over there as well too, that are directly at the mine site that have been dealing with those impacts for as long as that mine operation has been happening. But I also want to give a shout out to BMU as well for the support, and also listening out to allowing us to present to your meetings about issues and concerns that are also impacting, that we've seen, that we also would like to share and keep you all updated as well too. And again, to all the other organizations doing this important work as well too, of protecting water, lands, and also those that also had other perspectives on the pump storage projects as well happening here on Navajo and near Navajo. Other than that, I would like to conclude our live stream there. We are at 2 hours, and ikahat to everyone for joining and tuning in to hear from our perspective as Nizhóní and American Rivers Center for Biological Diversity, as well as Black Mesa residents up on Black Mesa, on our perspective and reflections on this FERC decision, on where it started, our involvement to where it is today. And other than that, I would like to, I'm going to just end our live stream. That was a good discussion. Again, if you have any questions, you can contact us at the info@nizhóní.org. Other than that, I'm going to stop this live stream. Okay, everybody, thank you.